Okay, everyone, I have to adjust here. My little remote thing doesn't work or doesn't seem to want to work. Okay, so we're working on Descartes' meditation. As I've said, I want to plunge into it so we can accomplish stuff in these little clips. Now, he begins by saying it's time. It's the moment in his life where he really has to think things through. Okay, now, he immediately addresses the issue of how hard this is. And so what he does, and this is kind of hard to follow, it's a little bit, the reasoning is a little bit strange for us. Let me just put it like that. Okay, and so, but the way he proceeds is to say that if I were to review everything I've ever thought, if I were to review all my previous ideas, I would never finish. So what he does is he sets up a method, and that method is twofold. First of all, and this is what's a little bit hard for us to follow, but the method is twofold. In the first place, he says, I'm not going to look at everything, I'm just going to look at the sources. Okay, I'm going to come back to this and talk to you about what he means by sources, because you see how clever this is. The second thing he does is also, I think, really difficult to kind of follow, even though it's sort of common sense. And that is that he says that what I'm going to do is, if something is just a little bit dubitable, I'm going to reject it as totally false. And now, listen, thousands, tens of thousands of commentators have been driven crazy by this because they think it's kind of cheating or inaccurate or fishy or something French or I don't know what. However, it's very, it's kind of simple-minded, really. I want to analyze my experience, and because I only want to find the truth. I only want to find true things that, even if it's a little bit cloudy, I'm going to reject it and go on and come back to it later. And so I think that makes all perfect sense. I really like it. I'm really fond of his approach here. So he's going to look at all of his experience, and he has two rules. The two rules are, number one, he's going to look at the sources, and then he's going to he's going to reject everything as false, even if it's just a little bit false. Okay, so then he's surfing on the beach. Okay, so the first source that he looks at is what he calls perception. It's sense experience as we normally experience it. That is to say, sight, smell, and all those things. Okay, so to make a long story short, what he discovers is that in his daily life, if he just looks out and asks himself whether things are true or false, he says, well, there are a lot of times things are false, and the answers or the explanations that he gives are like this. He says, well, at nighttime I don't see colors. He knows it's simple. He's just trying to find an error in perception or in sense experience. So that's a common one. Another one is two different people will eat something and someone will say, I just did this. I was in an Indian restaurant, and the person that I was with said, oh, this is so hot. And I said, it's not hot at all. And so the question is it hot or not hot? Let's fight about it. Let's argue about it. Let's discuss it. Well, Descartes idea here is it's irrelevant to fight about it because you can't agree. Let's just move on to look at something that's obviously true. All we want to do is look at true things. Okay, so that's kind of what he does. It's same with relative stuff. I was just watching as you might guess, the NBA final, and I was with a bunch of people from my town, and a couple of people said, oh, LeBron is so large, he's such a big guy. And a couple of people said, what do you mean? He's a relatively short player. Well, look at him, he's one of the shortest people on the court. And then so, is LeBron big or not big? Well, it depends on your frame of reference, and that's what Descartes wants to completely stay away from. He doesn't care about all that. He wants to find things that are obviously true. Okay, so the idea here, how am I doing with time? 5 minutes. I'll talk a little bit longer, then we'll go on to a video 3. So he goes on to the next level, and then he looks for something else that might be true, and he says, well, I can doubt the particulars of perception or my daily life. However, I can't doubt like the large things, the gross things. I can't doubt that I'm here talking to you in June in Washington, D.C. Well, then he says, actually, I can doubt that one very easily, because once upon a time I had a dream that I was in Cuckoo Land, and I was firmly persuaded that I was in Cuckoo Land. And then so I started to think about this one, and I realized I just had a dream where I was in Siberia, and, you know, as in Russia, and during the dream I was perfectly sure that I was in Siberia. I mean, I was talking to Maria Sharapova's dad about cheating on a drug test and all of that stuff, and so I thought I was in Russia. So the Descartes says, well, if you thought you were in Russia during your dream and had no doubts about it whatsoever, how do you know you're not wrong now? I think I'm in Greenbelt, Maryland, in the United States of America, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm in Cuckoo Land. Okay, with that one, I will stop for a second and give the video to YouTube.